All right, welcome. This is Christal Jordan, your host of Reality Check, and we have traveled to Huntsville, Alabama, to see what in the Carlos King is happening down here in these Huntsville streets. I had to leave Atlanta, get on the road, and come down here to meet with my girl KEKE after last week's episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville to find out what in the world is happening. So first of all, welcome to Reality Check. This is your first time.
Thank you. This is my first time.
Your first time. I had to come to you, girl. I had to come down to you.
Straight to the source.
Straight to the source, right? Because we've had Melody, we've had Latisha and Marsau, we've had Kimmy and Maurice, we have had Stormy, we have had Destiny. First time we're getting KEKE. So thank you so much for welcoming us in so we could figure out what is happening this season. But before we even come to this season, because we were trying to get to you last season, KEKE.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
We wanted to know what was going on last season because you came on the show. And of course, I'll just be honest with you. When you come on the show as Tisha's cousin, right? I think you guys favor, you can definitely see the family resemblance. I'm like, how are cousins coming on and they're on opposite sides of the Latisha Melody, disconnect. So let's talk about how you even got onto the cast, because now you're an actual cast member, but before we saw you as a friend of the show, but you were not necessarily Tisha's friend. You were with Melody. Yeah. So how did all that happen?
Well, actually, it was supposed to be that Melody and I were friends.
Okay.
Melody, there's a huge misconception that I went onto the show with Melody to spite my cousin. That's not true.
Okay.
Melody and I actually met before she even knew Tisha.
Oh,
we met years and years ago because we were the same undergraduate major.
Okay.
And shoot, I'm sorry. He messed me up. I'm sorry, y'all. My son just came in. Melody and I were the same undergraduate major in
college.
In college. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was her undergraduate major, my master's major in college. So while I was getting my master's in English education, she was also getting her undergrad degree in that. So that's how we became familiar with one another.
Okay.
And we share a common best friend.
Okay.
One of my previous colleagues, who was an English professor with me, is also best friends with Melody.
Okay.
So that's how she and I know each other. We've known each other since about 2007.
Okay.
So it's been over 10 years at this point.
Okay.
A lot of people, have misconceptions about that because they look at it as, well, Tisha and Melody are friends and Melody didn't know KEKE. She just came and got KEKE to pull her onto the show against her cousin. It was not like that at all.
Okay.
There had been talks about me coming onto the show even from the first season.
Okay.
But
with Melody, or because obviously you knew Tisha from way longer than Melody.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was with Melody the first season because I declined because there were some things going on with me and my cousin. I didn't want to come on TV making it look like we were against each other. Okay. So I said, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until I think, there's a better chemistry between Melody and Tisha, because I don't want to be caught up in the middle of their drama.
Now, the first season they were okay, right?
They were.
I'm gonna be honest with you, and I've been honest. I'm honest with everybody I talk to. Right, at first they were okay.
Yeah.
To me, and you can tell me what you think. The issue with Melody and Latisha is really not about Melody and Latisha. To me, it's about the way Melody handled her husband's indiscretions. Versus how she feels Tisha is handling her marriage, right? And to me, that issue
I don't necessarily even know if the problem was that. I think that at first the problem started out because as Melody was dealing with her issues with her husband, Tisha, as a friend, couldn't understand to kind of back up and give her that space and don't take it personal when she's not as chummy as she was before.
Right, because that's a lot. We all know Melody went through.
Right.
I'm happy to see her on her way doing amazing now, but
Right.
Her husband acted a fool. So I'm sure that's very painful. And if you haven't been through that before, you really have no concept of what that pain is like.
That's true.
I can't even imagine what it would be like on a national television platform.
Yeah.
You know, on top of that.
Yeah.
So, right. But it just doesn't seem like the issues really were between the two of them, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. It wasn't at first. And then when the guys kind of butted heads and, you know, all these cheating allegations start being, going back and forth between the guys, then it was like the women kind of got involved.
Right.
And things just went downhill from there.
Right. Well, I appreciate you clearing up the background on you and Melody. Let's talk about you and Tisha, because you guys are cousins, first cousins, correct? You, like I said, the family resemblance is obvious.
Right.
What was your relationship like from being little girls? You're older than she is?
No, actually, she's 2 weeks older than I am.
She's 2 weeks. Okay, so you're around the same age. So that's
the same age.
We'll call it a wash. What was your relationship like growing up?
We did not have a relationship when I was growing up, and we kind of get into this on the show a little bit because I was not allowed to be around my father's side of the family when I was growing up. There was my grandparents had this, especially my grandfather had this stigma about people from low-income housing. And so because my father was from the projects, he would not allow me to go into that environment.
Okay.
So, and he didn't like the fact there was also a lot of tension already because my mom was a teenage mother. Okay. And she comes from a very prestigious, strict household. So it's she's not a preacher's daughter, but close enough.
Okay, so so you guys have fathers. How are you all cousins?
My father and her mother are sister brother.
Oh wow. Okay. So your mother's family had felt some kind of way about your father's family. So that's where the beginning probably of the dynamic started.
Absolutely.
Okay, that gives us a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, you obviously knew of each other because it can't be that big in Huntsville, right?
Well, we're from Bessemer. Okay. Which is right outside of Birmingham. So, but it's not a really big city either. So I knew about my dad. I didn't necessarily know about any of my aunts or uncles or my cousins. I knew about one aunt specifically because she used to come and pick me up sometimes. Okay. But I didn't really know a lot about the rest of the family until I became a teenager. Okay. Like 13. And when I was 13, I said I wanted to know my family for myself because I always thought about them, wondered about them, And I reached out to my dad, and we built a relationship. And I started to have a relationship with Latisha.
Okay. So your dad and her mom, are they pretty close?
They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you guys are teenagers. What is it like when you get to college to where you both are obviously on your own? Because I would assume having a cousin that's 2 weeks, like the same age, and like I said, the family resemblance is clear, you know, both beautiful brown women. I can't imagine that not being a place where it's a person that at least, you should have something in common with, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we did have a lot of things in common, but one thing that we had in common was that we fought a lot.
Okay. What was the fighting for? What was the issue?
Oh my God, it was so many different things. It was, Latisha's very sensitive. So she calls you out on she takes to heart every little thing that you do. So for me, it was, stop making problems that aren't there. Stop creating things. If I'm hanging with my friends and she feels like, well, you like your friends better than you like me, and I'm like, no, why? Because I'm hanging with them. That you have friends too. You hang with your friends. How is me hanging with my friends any different? When we would be all together and with her friends, I feel like she treat me different. From her friends. So we argue about that because she didn't put the demands and expectations on everybody else that she did me. Okay. So it's just a multitude of teenage issues.
Teenage girls.
Right. So many different issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you feel like she wanted you guys to be closer? Do you think the issue, or do you think it was just a controlling thing? Because it sounds like if she wanted a lot out of you, we saw that, you know, with her and Kimmy, how she, you know, what she wanted the relationship to be like. Do you think it came from a place of her feeling like you guys should have been closer since you were cousins?
You know what? I never thought about it that way, so I don't know. I've honestly never even considered that aspect.
Okay.
The way that I've always looked at it was just kind of just like charged it up to the game that she was sensitive.
Yeah.
You know, even when I would go different places and I would introduce my friends, and you know, I say, this is my best friend, this is my best friend, such and such, and I get to her and I say, this is my, you know, my cousin. She get angry. You know, like, why didn't you introduce me as your best friend? And I'm like, well, I would think that cousin would override best friend, and those are the kinds of issues that we would have, because I wasn't that I would like to say menial, but I can't call it small, because you can't necessarily call how somebody else feels.
True.
How they feel small. But for me, I just wasn't like that. You know?
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
5 sisters, 2 brothers.
How many does she have?
2 brothers.
Okay, so she was the only girl.
Only girl.
So she probably got a lot more attention. That could explain a little bit of that dynamic. Okay, so as you guys got older, you meet Melody in college. Where is your relationship with Tisha at that point? Are you guys closer in that age range, or?
We were close, but we still had a lot of conflict. Okay. Always. I mean, you know, I graduated a year before she did. I graduated with the class of 2000. And I came to Alabama A&M here in Huntsville. And she called me when she was getting ready to graduate, because she didn't know what she was going to do. And I was like, look, you know, I'm going to fill out an application. You just come here. You know, I knew somebody in housing. So I'm like, we're going to, you know, room together and all this and that. And so I made these plans. She filled out, you know, for scholarships that I told her about. She got the scholarships or whatever. And she came to A&M. But, you know, we were suite mates. We weren't roommates.
Okay.
But it was a lot of conflict. And a lot of fighting, still bickering,
Okay. Well,
I mean, over things like this, both of us have a lot of clothes. We've both been very fashionable. Always been very fashionable. So, I had overflow where I had to put my extra clothes in my roommate's closet. Well, Tisha had a roommate who didn't have, you know, a lot of clothes either. So she, instead of her putting her clothes in her roommate's closet, she come put them in my roommate's closet. And I'm like, well, where my clothes supposed to go? Why would you do that? Put them in your own room. So it would be things like that we would argue about. That I never could understand. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Tisha and Marsau met in college, correct?
After they graduated. They worked at, it was a call center here. Okay. They worked at that call center after they both graduated. That's when they met.
Okay. What were your thoughts about, were you excited about them as a couple?
Yes.
Initially?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah, I was always excited about them as a couple. I never gave any other impression.
So you got along with Marsau initially?
Very well. Okay. At first. Yeah.
At first.
Very well.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. He was like a brother to me.
Okay.
At first.
Okay, good. I'm just trying to see how we get to where we are today, because we heard on episode that Marsau said that he and Tisha had done a lot for you early on, and you're saying that that's not true.
Not true at all.
So how did we go from him being like a brother, you guys having the normal cousin, sistery type, you know, dynamic, to it being to where we are today? How did that happen?
Well, as you know, life, you know, hit. I had some surgeries, and I was prescribed some pain medication. They had me on this pain medication for 2 months straight. And when I started to, when I tried to stop the pain medication, I noticed that my body would have these different reactions. And when I would take something, it'd go away in like 5 minutes. But those, you know, withdrawals got worse and worse. And so I was very young. I was like, you know, maybe early 30s. Okay. So I was too nervous to kind of be open and honest with my doctor, because when I tried to I tell them, you know, hey, I need another prescription. They like, no, well, you don't need them anymore. And I'm like, okay, you know. So I was kind of I felt like I was forced to go to the streets to try to find prescription pain medication. I didn't really know anything about it before then. So I did, you know. I started buying prescription pain medication if I couldn't get a prescription for it. And then I just kind of fell into that trap of becoming addicted to.
What was the medications that you were taking?
Percocet.
Okay.
At first it was Percocet, but then it turned into oxycodone, which is higher Percocet.
Yeah. And there's so many people that have that story. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It's definitely something that a lot of people are dealing with. So when you were going through that transition, did your family know? How did Tisha and Marsau kind of find out that you were struggling?
Not at first. My family didn't know. But one time after Tisha had one of her babies, the second baby, she had been prescribed Percocet, and so I took some of her pills. I didn't take all of them or a whole bunch, but I did take some. Okay. And I didn't really think it would be a big problem or she would notice or anything like that. But she did notice. And, so that kind of forced me when she asked me about it, because I was like the only person there that day. So when she asked me about it, I was like, at first I was like, no, I ain't take them, because I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know whether to just be honest with her. Like, I didn't know what to think. I didn't even really know what was going on myself at that time. Right. So I just came clean with her, and I was like, look, this medication is having an effect on me, and I feel like I need them. And she was like, okay, well, what should we do about them? I was like, well, maybe I need to go and talk to somebody about it. And so one day she picked me up and we rode out to Bradford. Okay. And we got information, about.
So you trusted her enough. That was good that you trusted her and she was there for you. That says a lot about you guys' relationship.
She was like the first person I told. I was honest with, I believe. Okay. Yeah.
So what was that process like, getting yourself off of that, addiction?
Oh, it was difficult, and it took a couple of tries, because I didn't go to rehab right away when we went the first time. I went a couple of years later. Did you understand that at that point you were acting as an addict, or you just thought, I just got to stop taking these pills? That's what I thought. At that point, my mind was not registering addict, because when you think addict, you think, crack cocaine or
it's a picture in your head. Right.
That's what you think hard drug. You don't think medicine that the doctor gave me is turning me into an addict. I had never done any drugs ever. Yeah. So for this to be happening, I'm like, I just think that I need this medicine, but it's not registering that this medicine really is a drug.
And this is something I can't stop on my own. I need help. Right. Okay. So a few tries, it takes a while. Do you feel like Latisha and Marsau and their family were supportive of you in that time period?
You know what? At first, I felt that. Because like I said, she was the first person I opened up to. And it was a couple of years before I actually went to rehab. And when I went to rehab, she was one of the people who she knew, and my immediate family and my best friends, they all knew, but nobody else. But then when I got out of rehab, I was functioning when I was taking pills. So I was still working every day. I was a mom. I was a wife, people didn't really know. They just knew it was something that just wouldn't.
Something's not quite right.
Something's not quite right with me, because I've always been very sharp, very astute, very, just on my game. So it kind of threw me off my game a little bit, and I thought that I was just operating normally. But people who know you can tell the difference. Right. So I thought that, we were here, And then when I leave and I return to work, and I tell you, I'm working with that best friend me and Melody have in common. And one day, this was a couple of years after I got out of rehab. She didn't tell me right away, but it was a couple of years later. She was like, "Well, Tisha, and Marsau are saying things to them that's making them look at you a different way." And I'm like what? And she told me what, and I was floored. I was extremely hurt. I was extremely angry, because at that time that was really sensitive for me.
So they had shared with people that you were struggling with that addiction. Okay.
And I didn't like that. No, I felt like they should. I never shared her secrets with anyone ever.
And so before we go to break, I just want to make sure that we do acknowledge that she had told you secrets as well.
Wait, she had told my
No, you had confided in her, and she had confided in you.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so you guys had that kind of relationship.
We were best friends for years. Although we had a lot of conflict, we still loved each other hard.
Family.
And we were best friends. So I knew all of her dirt. She knew all of mine.
Okay.
You know, but when you start telling my dirt, and I'm holding on to yours, it gets to be a little bit different. Especially if you're telling it to make people view me a certain way.
Right. Well, especially if you're telling it and I don't know that you're telling my business. Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk a little bit more. At least that it kind of explains how we got to the point of there being betrayal, on your part. So we come back, we're going to find out what happened after that. And, of course, once KEKE was added to Love and Marriage Huntsville, and how we got to the drink being thrown across the table. You guys stay right here. This is rolling out an exclusive here in Huntsville, Alabama, talking with KEKE from Love and Marriage Huntsville. We'll be right back. All right, we're back talking with KEKE. And first of all, I just want to thank you for your honesty about your addiction, because I feel like there are so many people that are dealing with that, especially a different form of addiction. It doesn't look like the addiction that we think of when we think of addiction. You think of someone struggling with heroin or cocaine or crack, not pills, like you said that your doctors prescribed you for something that was very realistic, right? So at the point that you learned that your cousin and her husband at that point have been sharing your business to others, you obviously feel betrayed. Did you share that with Melody before coming onto the show?
I did. We had talked about it.
Okay.
I didn't until much later. It might have been a couple of years after I actually found out that they had done that.
Okay.
I was too ashamed to even talk to Melody. I didn't want anybody at that time. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know because everybody was just like, KEKE, on drugs. It doesn't add up. The picture doesn't even equate, So I was too busy just trying to erase it out of my life and move forward with, my kids. I got pregnant a couple of more times and, had my babies, and, my oldest son was involved in sports. So I just tried to bury it and keep working and try to stay sober. That's what I, attempted to do. So a couple of years later, this is right before the show, or right after, one or the other. Melody and I had an event together. Okay. And it was for the English department. And we were both speakers at that event. After the event, that's when she and Tisha started having problems. Me and Tisha were having problems at that time too. So after that event, we just kind of stayed and talked for a while because we were both frustrated with what was going on with
and this was not on the show. Okay.
No, that wasn't on the show. And so that's the first time we actually talked about it because I wanted to ask her about it, but I just couldn't. I couldn't. That was the first time I actually had the courage to ask her about it. Because I'd grown older, so I started becoming a little bit more bold and, accepting the things that, had happened. Yeah.
You mentioned that you kept Tisha's secrets, but she had not kept yours. So obviously a big issue with the show is infidelity and the marriage, right? We know that the first season, Melody's, marriage, we saw it go through a horrible breakdown because of Martell's infidelities. Had Tisha confided in you about her marriage with Marsau?
I mean, we had talked about marriage a million times since we had been married, so she confided in me about everything dealing with marriage from cleaning up,
getting on her nerves, anything.
Any little thing, we discussed and we talked about. So she confided in me as well as I confided in her. Absolutely.
Okay. So at the time that you and Melody kind of reconnect, start getting closer, I guess for the viewers, even if you're having an issue with family, it feels awkward to see someone allow someone who was not family to be a part of family disagreements. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's like if my cousin and I've got a cousin named Kay. If Kay and I get into it, for me to bring somebody else in and let them and talk about my cousin to them, it just feels different.
I get that.
You get that?
Most definitely.
Okay. So did you feel like, man, maybe I shouldn't be telling Melody how I feel about, maybe Melody and I should not be talking about my cousin because it's bringing an insider. Okay, you didn't. I didn't, that way.
Because I felt completely betrayed. And don't get me wrong, that's not the only thing they told him. They told him other things too.
Right.
You know, that's just one of the things that they told them.
So you found out that she basically had betrayed your trust on a number of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just one of the things, but yeah.
Had you talked to Tisha about that before the show and just let her know that you were hurt?
I did.
And what was her response?
Her response was, well, it didn't happen the way that Melody told you it happened, because I heard that, Marsau was the main culprit, just kind of telling about it and laughing and joking about it, which he just did again. But when I confronted her about that, I'm like, I hear this is the scenario. And she's like, no, it didn't happen like that. Marsau felt like we should have told them, because I was invited over for Christmas. But that August, I had gone to rehab earlier that year. I had gotten out in August. So at this time, December comes, I'm clean. It's actually the beginning of sobriety for me.
Right.
And I hear that right before I come to celebrate Christmas, because it was at Melody's. So I hear right before I come to celebrate Christmas with them, they are discussing me and my personal business and laughing about it. So my thing was, if she didn't think about family then, why am I thinking of, she discussed it with her first.
Facts.
So why am I thinking about family when I'm discussing what you told her about me?
That makes sense.
No, I wanted confirmation. I wanted details. I wanted to know how what was said and in what manner and who was there, who heard it, how long before I came. I wanted details.
Yeah, because I was hurt. Because you were hurt. That makes sense. Let's fast forward, because that gives us some context, right, to all this. So obviously, last week's episode with you guys, the relationship continues to just deteriorate between you and Tisha. It was very difficult to see you throw water on her when she hadn't necessarily done anything, except she did ignore you, but that's not confrontational. What had happened? Because obviously there's things that have happened off camera. What got you to the place that you would lash out like that at Tisha?
Number one, it's a buildup from things over the years. I told you she'll confront me about every little thing. Well, I let so much go with her, because number one, I'm not a crybaby like that, I just rather let it go to avoid the drama. So I think those things, and that's not necessarily healthy, because I think those things had built up in me. And two, she had blamed me for the situation that was going on, the rumor that was going around. And that's why she ignored me. And I'm more enraged by that than anything.
So the rumor that was going around is that her husband had another rumor. There's been a few rumors like that.
Yeah.
But this is alleged. We don't know. But the rumor that was going around, now, there was a lot bleeped out. But it sounded like you had information, or someone else was talking, right? And you would talk to someone else. So you were saying the rumor didn't come from you. You were trying to find out for her.
This is the thing. Tisha approached me with this rumor.
Okay.
She approached me and she was like, hey, this rumor is going around and I hear it's coming from your people. And I'm like, my people?
So we just for the audience, the rumor was going around that Marsau had a threesome.
He had an affair with her makeup artist.
With her makeup artist.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's several alleged rumors, I guess. Yeah. I heard a rumor of a threesome. Now a rumor with a makeup artist.
And that's the threesome is supposedly
with the makeup
artist.
And she thought you were responsible for starting the rumor or spreading the rumor?
Well, no, I don't think she thought I was responsible for starting the rumor, because she came to me with the rumor. But when she came to me with it, she told me that my makeup artist was responsible for starting it. And I said, no, it was a different. Yeah. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let me talk to her. Let me get to the bottom of it, and I'm gonna get back with you, and I'll let you know what comes of it.
Okay.
You know.
Now, like, is this the young lady that was on the video?
Yes.
The video with you, Bree.
With
the video.
Yes, Bree.
Okay, Bree. So that was. She said that she heard Bree started the rumor.
Yes.
Which would connect it to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I'm like, let's dispel this right away. Let's put this to rest because we just got back in a good place. I don't want anybody thinking anything like that is coming from my people. So let's go on and get to the bottom of this and put this fire out. I don't even want it to grow. Okay. You know, that was my intention.
Now, when you came to the barbecue, you seemed upset already. Did you?
No, I was not upset.
You were ready.
Already.
So I guess I'm asking that because why would you because to have the conversation with Stormy in front of the cameras, you know that's going to be embarrassing. I know her and Marsau don't want that information probably out to us. They're probably trying to get rid of it without sharing it in front of the camera. So why did you decide to confront her right there at the barbecue?
Because they had started blaming me for it.
Okay.
And don't go around blaming me for things that are not my fault. You know, that's why she didn't speak, because she had started believing and telling people that I was responsible for spreading this rumor. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. At that time, before she started blaming me, I had not spoken with anybody besides my makeup artist and the barber guy, you know, about the allegations. Nobody
did the rumor
else.
come from? Do you know where
it came from him?
The barber guy.
My makeup artist, when I confronted her, she was like, look, tonight I'm gonna call you and I'll tell you where this comes from. Okay. I know this guy, but this is not my rumor. I don't have nothing to do with this. So she called me later on that night and on the phone with this guy. She called me on
because he says he did not start the rumor, that didn't come from him.
Okay, well, he's on video saying it.
Okay. So your makeup artist heard it and brought it to you.
And that's another thing. They had gone to production with it. You can't go to production with this if you don't want it shown. The production, they knew about it. Right. You know, so they were, my makeup artist was like, they trying to get me fired because they saying that I'm responsible for starting this rumor. That's another reason why I wanted to see what was going on, because I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. Okay. You know, so when I when she called me that night on three-way with this guy, I talked to him and I'm like, look, I don't want to, you know, I'm not hitting you up for information to try to, you know, blackmail anybody or hurt anybody. I just want to know what's going on so that I can clear my makeup artist's name and we don't have anything to do with this. I don't want to be involved. And he starts telling us everything that's going on, and, you know, he is the one who tells us that there was a threesome. You know, he divulges all this information and the names and everything else to go along with it. I wouldn't know any of these names otherwise. I wouldn't know anything about a threesome otherwise. You know, if I wanted to just make that up, I could have been made that up and said it. This came from him, you know. So the next day after I talked to him, I called Tisha the very next morning. And I said, you know, we were both busy that day. I said, what are you doing tomorrow? She said, I have nothing to do tomorrow. I'm completely free. I said, I want you to come by. I want to talk to you about something. And she was like, okay, you know, I'll come by, blah, blah, blah. And we hung up. And the next day she just didn't show. So I didn't know what that was about. But I texted her like, hey, you know, maybe you were busy. You could have hit me up or something, let me know. But I think maybe somebody had gotten to her beforehand. And so then a couple of weeks later, she calls me and she's like, hey, why are you calling around asking people about me and Marsau's marriage? So I'm taken aback. I'm like, because I know I had not done that. You know, of course I had this conversation with this guy about what had been brought to me. But I'm not just calling people like, hey, what you know about Marsau? You know, you got any dirt? Nothing like that. Okay. You know, so I'm like, the way she come at me, number one, I'm like, girl, what? So I was defensive. And I was like, number one, she was like, if you had this conversation with him, why wouldn't you call me and tell me? I said, well, I called you the very next morning. And I asked you to come over because I wanted to tell her face to face. Right. I wanted to tell her face to face. I wanted to let her listen to some things, some recordings. Because honestly, I didn't believe this guy. He sounded like he was lying to me because he flip-flopped several times on the call. Okay. he said it then, he was like, never mind, I just made it all up. I'm just lying, you know. And so my makeup artist is like, well, are you saying this because you have because we learned that he has a contract with Marsau and they're building his barbershop. So my makeup artist seems to believe that he's flipping because of that. And I'm thinking, this guy full of it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what I'm going to report back to her the next day. Like, look, y'all need to start working with this dude. This is what he's saying. This is where this rumor is coming from. And I believe he's a liar. Steer clear of him. That's all I wanted to tell her. And she started going around telling people that I'm responsible. This guy called her and let her listen to a part of the conversation, because he recorded it, where he's saying, no, you know, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Where he's saying, because I told you he flip-flops. So to make her think that I'm calling, just trying to force him
to say something.
Yeah, to say something that wasn't the case.
Everybody is recording calls, and this is all very just it's a little confusing because his story obviously is different than your story.
Of course.
But from your perspective, your cousin, that's obviously a very hurtful situation.
Absolutely.
So you hear that she's blaming you for this.
Yeah.
So then you come to the picnic. And what is your intention when you first come? Because you try to speak to her.
Yes.
She doesn't speak. She keeps playing cards. And then you seem to get really upset at the fact that
she got up and kind of, when I went to hug her, she got up and
she went to see Maurice. Right.
And I thought, and then right before that, or right after that one, she spoke to my husband all nice and, you know, sweet. I felt very disrespected.
Okay.
And one thing, I just don't tolerate disrespect, Will. I don't. And she knows that also. It might seem, you know, simple to some people. Like I said, menial to some people. Like to me, some things other people feel seem menial. But she knows that for me, ignoring me is one of my triggers.
Okay.
Don't do that. With my husband, when he ignores me, it gets deeper. You know? Because he often does that, and she knows that. She knows that's when I go to 10.
You guys know each other really well, so you know how to get on each other's nerves.
Exactly.
So is there something that we didn't see? Because we see that happening, and then we see you talking to Stormy about the situation. That's obviously got to embarrass her. What's crazy is that
Stormy already knew.
Stormy did, because Stormy acted like she did not know.
Well, I think Stormy was just shocked. I don't think she
wanted
to be in the middle of it, you know. And I would not have brought that up if had, you know, I not been very angry at that time. But I was very angry.
Yeah.
And when I am in that mode of anger, it's just difficult
to back down.
It is.
Pull it back.
Yeah, it's difficult. I just become I don't care.
Do you, looking back, did you feel like you went too far with the drink?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I you know,
because Tisha seems very non-confrontational. For somebody that like most people, you throw a drink at them, they coming back at you.
Right.
And some people are like, she probably wouldn't have thrown a drink at her if she knew Tisha was the type that would come back.
There's never been a time that I did something to Tisha that she didn't come back. That was the first time.
Okay.
And only time.
Okay.
First and only. You know, and we even say this in the show, we have had more physical altercations than we have with anybody else. We have fought many times. Right.
Family, so that's fun. I know
we
sisters,
have gotten,
sisters, cousins, you know, girl on girl, it's a whole different type of energy.
Yeah.
Because this obviously was taped a long time ago. This came out on television the last couple of weeks. Where are you guys at now? Because that's a really hurtful, it's unfortunate, but it also is a really hurtful rumor, right? And embarrassing.
Yeah.
And we know that Tisha has been dealing with people trying to prove that Marcel probably has not helped the situation by being a bit of a smart ass.
Right.
But, you know, there's been alleged accusations of Marsau for a long time that has to be hurtful to anybody.
I agree.
So where are you guys?
I'm a woman.
And you're married. You've been married a long time.
And I'm married, so I would never put anybody else's marriage on Front Street or interfere in anybody else's marriage. And my thing, that's another reason why I was ticked. Yeah. Because I'm like, you should know me better than that.
But I wouldn't do that.
Than to put that on me in front of a lot of people. You gonna put that on me when you know you've never seen me act in that manner. Yeah. You've never seen any kind of behavior like that from me. you should know that you should have known when this guy came to you telling these lies. You should have known that they were lies, and you should have heard me out instead of never even listening to my side in the first place.
Right. But you guys have a history of it being kind of rocky, right?
Of it being rocky, but not
to
just
that extent.
Blaming each other for and not even explaining or allowing the other person to say their piece. Not that kind of history.
Do you think that, I'm just gonna ask you just a blunt question, do you feel like, because this is a alleged rumor, do you feel like Marsau has put Tisha in a bad position?
It's difficult for me to say that. I can't necessarily say that I feel like he's put her in a bad position because and see, that's the thing. I'm not against a marriage. If that's what they want to work on together, they might have an understanding that nobody else knows about. If you like it, I love it. Who am I to try to?
Right. Well, but that's one thing. But even if the husband, if you're on a national TV show, I would say this: Martell put Melody in a horrible position.
Yes,
because you're on a national television show. Regardless,
but there was no understanding with him, and she actually caught him, in the act, really, of cheating.
So you're saying that if allegedly something has happened, perhaps Tisha and Marsau have an understanding.
Maybe. Because, so many things have come out and, she's debunked every last one of them, So I just think that she believes her husband at the end of the day. And I personally don't think it's anything wrong with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you choose.
If that's what you choose.
You can do whatever. That's their marriage.
Right.
That's their marriage. And I think, I really, just honestly, like, as someone that watches the show, I've interviewed, at this point, the only person we haven't interviewed is Tiffany and Lewis. No one likes to see marriages destroyed.
Right.
The show is about Black professionals. Obviously, we like a little bit of the juice, but I even was rooting for Melody and Martell until Martell made it painfully clear that we could no longer root for him. You know what I mean? And Melody, and we're happy to see her, but no one wants to see that happen.
And that's another, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's another thing that really agitated me. Is that when I came onto the show, that I wasn't coming onto the show to try to go against you, but you put that narrative out there.
Let me ask you this. Because a lot of people feel like, I'm sure you see the comments, a lot of people feel like Melody has positioned you kind of as her pawn against, in her disconnect with Tisha.
They can feel that way. However, when Melody turned to me, and she said, she asked me whatever question it was. I can't remember what it was verbatim at the Christmas party. I think she said something like, well, you her cousin. Has she ever talked to you about infidelity or something like that? And I'm like, well, I tried my best to give a general answer, So I'm like, well, of course we've talked about, marriage before, of course. But yes, she has heard rumors. However, she has not found any of them to be true.
Right.
That's what I said.
Well, they probably edited that last part.
No,
out.
they didn't. It's there.
It's there.
It's
there. What people heard is yes, she has talked to me about it,
and that's different from what I said.
Right.
So then people went back telling her, well, KEKE said that you said that you talked to her about Marsau cheating before. I never said that.
Yeah.
I said we've had many different discussions about marriage, and yes, she's heard rumors before. Who hasn't heard rumors before?
True.
But she has not found any of them to be true.
Right.
I don't feel like that statement warranted her saying and putting out that I was coming against their marriage.
Could you see that if, I would just say this, and I think Kimmy is pretty rational to everybody. I think on the show, I said that to her. Just the fact that it was a conversation about Tisha with people that don't like Tisha and her cousin. Because regardless, you guys are family. So you can have this conversation with me, you can have a conversation with Melody, but at the end of the day, you guys are blood. So anybody else, you guys can go back and forth and there's still an opportunity for reconciliation in a different way because you're blood.
Now, I would normally feel that way, yes.
Okay.
But how can I feel that way against the person that you dogged me out to? How?
And I guess we don't see her dogging you out.
Right. How do I make that stance?
Yeah,
and she is the one who came back to let me know what people close to me were saying about me. So how do I do that?
So now, so where you were, because like I said, this happened a long time ago. Time heals a lot of wounds, right?
Yeah.
So
supposedly,
it is almost Halloween. It is Halloween tomorrow.
It is.
Where are you guys at now?
We are in a non-communicative state, and I think that it's best that we remain that way, at least for a while, a good while. We need time apart.
Do you feel like, especially with now, in that scene, you threw the water on her. Marsau made the joke about you possibly being on drugs,
right?
Which would be extremely hurtful, considering what just period. That's a hurtful thing to say. But
I'm used to it now from them.
But do you think that was him responding to you throwing water in his wife's face?
Yes and no, because he could say that whether it doesn't matter whether I throw water in his wife's face or not. He said that before, and I had not done that.
So you feel like they just really don't have respect for you for what you've been through.
I expect that to be said.
Okay.
And I expect her to not check him when he says it. Yeah.
Does she check him when he says anything?
Sometimes.
Okay. Because fans have said this about Tisha. She's non-confrontational, seems that way to us. Her mom says things that are very disrespectful at times.
Right.
But it's hard to check your mom.
Yeah.
But still, especially when your mom is talking about your husband, most people will step in and say. So we kind of see Tisha just not necessarily holding Marsau accountable, especially this season, or her mother accountable. So is that just kind of her MO? Can you see that from her being that's just kind of who she is? Or do you think that it's specifically when it comes to you that she's not protective?
Exactly. She won't hold them accountable, but she'll hold every word I say accountable. She'll make me account for every last word I say, action I make, thing I do, way I breathe.
Do you feel like at all Melody has taken advantage of the situation with you guys you and Tisha being at odds? Do you feel like that there's been any manipulation on her part to kind of dig for information about Tisha? Because that question in itself
I feel like that's what I was about to say. When you're in a spot like that on reality television, you have to play the game.
Yeah.
You have to.
She plays the game well.
Of course, you have
Melody
to.
plays the game well.
This is your adversary.
Yes.
If you see an opening or a way to get a shot in, you're gonna take it.
Absolutely.
And that's just about anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't hate on that. She plays the game well.
Yeah.
She plays the game well. What about the other ladies? Tisha and Stormy were not in a good place, really, because of Marsau. A lot of things are happening this season, and most of it have more to do with Marsau than Tisha. Even with Felicia and her, like this, just a lot of issues around Marsau. It feels like the first couple of seasons, Martell was the bad guy. It seems like Marsau is the bad guy.
It up
Marsau is now, and I think that's reality TV. It's just the nature of the beast.
That's the way the pendulum swings.
It's the way the pendulum swings.
Yeah.
Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's just his turn?
You know what? There are really no rules in reality TV. I've always wanted to do TV. I never quite thought that I'd be doing reality TV though, So I thought long and hard about this before I decided to do it. Because I know that reality TV comes with a certain set of, non-negotiables,
it does.
so to speak. And if you have to go there, then people see you go there.
Right.
And you get a lot of backlash for that. I wasn't really interested in, mess or tearing down. I really was more interested in building up. But I took the opportunity, because I thought that I thought I was entering at a good time where Tisha and Melody had made amends at the reunion.
It seemed that way.
It seemed that way.
But when Tisha says something like, you have a dark soul or something like, I knew they weren't going to be able to ever be back like it was.
Right. Well, that was last year. That was before. I mean, that was after I came on.
Right.
But before that,
it was
reunion.
before you. Yeah. The reunion before.
Yes. It was like.
Last reunion, it was like, this ain't going to come back.
It was like, you know what? We're going to move forward.
Right.
We're going to, let this go. Mm-hmm. And I was like, finally, because I'm in this mess behind the scenes already.
Yeah.
Because of what's been said about me and, and me
and
talking
just a relationship
to all of them.
And understand that you did have a realistic, legitimate relationship with Melody.
Yeah.
It wasn't just created to get back at Tisha, which I think a lot of people thought. We're going to take another break and we're going to come back with our conclusion to this conversation with KEKE. I want to hear just about what you have going on.
Okay.
Some of the things that you've been dealing with, and then what's next.
Okay.
For the rest of this season. We have barely gotten into this season, and we are already in a place of water being shaking the table. So we're going to come back and conclude the conversation with KEKE. Stay right there. All right, and we're back concluding this conversation with KEKE. Now, before we get all the way out of Love and Marriage Huntsville, we got to ask you about this Crime Stoppers video.
Yes.
This season, I mean, you are shaking the table and all kinds of stuff is going on. I do want to say the last episode they did say that no charges had come out of that video.
And they won't.
Do you want to clear that up for everybody?
You know what? I have counsel. And my counsel, they have advised me to not comment on this topic, but I'm so ready for people to know what really happened that it's hard for me to hold back. So I will say this: I will be fully vindicated.
Okay,
I will be.
How did that feel watching that on television?
Of course, I was frustrated. I was heated. I was angry, especially because I know I had not done what they accused me of doing.
Okay.
None of it. Not even hitting cars, leaving out of the parking lot. So I was backing out of a parking space. But okay, that's how y'all want to play it? Cool. I passed it on to my counsel, and I'll let them tell me what to do. So
okay, we'll follow back up with you when you can talk to us a little bit more about that. The rest of the season. What do you look? I mean, because this season started off with you in a hard place. We see you going through a lot. You having health issues.
Yes.
How are you? You look amazing now.
Thank
so it looks
you.
like you're in better spirits. Everything is in a better place now.
You know what? As far as the health issues, I have not been sick now in about, I would say, maybe a month now. Okay. And that's great because when I got sick, I was really, really very sick, and it was just difficult to go through that. So I don't know still yet what was causing that, but I do have an appointment with specialists set up to try to figure out what it was that was causing me to have those episodes.
Was it like flu-like symptoms or?
No, it wasn't flu-like symptoms. What it was is it felt like a stomach virus one because I couldn't keep anything down.
Okay.
All day. I was just, even if I didn't have anything, and there was something with my muscles in my neck, my shoulders, in my back, and all down my arms. I don't know what it was, but it's like they would ache really terribly, and no matter how I moved or stood up or laid down, I couldn't get relief, but it was a lot of pain. Okay. And it's funny, some people say she was probably trying to get pain medicine. No, because that was honestly, pain medicine was the last thing on my mind when I was going through that. It was like, please make it stop. Yeah. Please figure out what's going on, because I was in some serious. I've never felt anything like that before, so I don't know what it is. I really don't.
Well, we hope you find that out. Do you have any words of encouragement? Because your story is admirable to be able to overcome addiction, and we know that there's so many people that are struggling with that don't feel comfortable talking about it. Can you offer any words of encouragement?
I can say that for anybody out there who might be struggling with addiction, know that you are not alone. You do not have to be ashamed. There are people out here who have been through the same thing that you have gone through, people who understand, people who can empathize with you. But there are also people who can help you. And when you are ready, you can pick up the phone or go to your nearest treatment center at any time and be willing to get the help that you need. And when you do that, life just gets so much better. I wish that I would have made the decision to be honest and clean myself up years before I actually finally got clean, because now I'm really experiencing what it's like to wake up every day naturally happy and joyful from a natural high, and it just feels so much better than being, depressed every day. Absolutely. So that's what I would say, is just, pray your way through it and seek help, because Lord knows I had to pray my way through it.
And it's better on the other side.
Absolutely.
After you go through it, it probably gets dark at first, but it's better on the other side.
It's definitely dark, but it can get better.
It can get better. Well,
yes.
Keke, I want to thank you for, again, inviting us into your home and being so candid. We hope that you will continue to, shine bright. And I hope that you and your cousin can one day get your issues together and be able to at least be family again, because family is really important. But thank you so much.
Thank
you guys for watching, and we'll be back with more from this interview on rollingout.com.